What's happening, fam? L.A.R movement still moving. Subscriber die trying. You see the thumbnail. Um, Judas and the Black Messiah review. First and foremost, I'm partial. I grew up in Maywood. I went to school. I went to high school and grade school in Maywood. Okay, I'm partial. So here's the thing. For some of you who don't know, um, Fred Hampton died at like 21. Okay, so don't look for extensive stories like a short window of time. But it's really about a guy who gets in trouble with the law. And instead of going to jail, he winds up being an informant so he doesn't have to go to jail. And he basically infiltrates the Black Panthers in Chicago. And he's, you know, trying to, and white people are viewing the Black Panthers as the equivalent to the KKK at this particular time. But they don't, it looks like they don't use the same tactics that they would use with the quote unquote KKK. So you got the FBI involved. And Bill, or Lakeith's character, is stuck between a rock and a hard place because it's not looking like the organization he thought it was going to be. But at the same time, he's not trying to go to jail. So he's really much, two-timing snake in the grass, right? And he's doing whatever it takes to get himself out of the situation. And every time he thinks he's out, they keep pulling him back in. Fred don't know nothing about what's going on. Like they don't, and they kind of pressed his character, Bill's character, a time or two, like see what his temperature was. But he quote unquote passed, and he kept deflecting and getting the heat off of him. So the timeline is right. Of course, the story is pretty much accurate because his will be considered his wife and his son's mother. She had a lot of input, and his son had a lot of input to do with the story. So there's only a few things that they can't really per se say, and it's really the meetings of quote unquote Bill with the FBI and his dealings with that. But everything else they got. So he tried to unify the black gangs first. Didn't necessarily work. So then he unified the whites and the Hispanics with the blacks, and then the gangs came along, which made it look like, this dude has quote unquote too much power. That's why he was considered the Black Messiah. And the issue with the government was, the Panthers in itself, they were different than the Civil Rights Movement in the fact that they didn't have just one leader. They had multiple leaders. So if you get rid of one, another one pops up. And that was different from Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, so on and so forth. So what winds up happening is they have a history of getting rid of one Panther and another one popping up. So they're trying to, instead of put people in jail or get people to leave the country, they just want, we're going to kill these fools. We're going to kill them. And this is the part of Hampton's story that's a little bit different, and people don't realize the mix of, when they say Malcolm X was killed by the nation or black people killed Malcolm X, this is kind of how, it was black people, but they were working for, white people. And you got to get compromised people normally. You can't get somebody who just working a job. You know what I'm saying? You got to get somebody who you got something over their head. So for me, it was a good movie, but I'm biased, But I knew what it was because I knew Fred's life wasn't that long. So I kind of figured out the timeline already. So it's not gonna be that's the story might span maybe 2 years possibly. You know, not that long, like maybe 2 years. You know, maybe a little bit more. Who knows? I can't say for sure, but not off the top of my head. But I like the movie, so it's my review. I say go check it out. It's Black History Month. You need to see stuff like that. Shout out to everybody in Maywood. Shout out to the West Side. Shout out to the South Side too. You know what I'm saying? But like, share, subscribe, or die trying. Peace.